So good morning and welcome to the Oregon Department of Education Child Nutrition Program Student Success Act webinar. As mentioned, today's webinar will be recorded. My name is Karen Williams and I'm a child nutrition specialist and will be presenting today's webinar. I'm joined by Laura Allren and Chantel Davidson, who will be moderating and helping out with the presentation. The purpose of today's webinar is to provide informational highlights of the Student Success Act, commonly referred to as SSA, and what changes sponsors can expect when completing the renewal process and when returning to normal meal service operations in school year 22-23. This webinar is focused on basic details and will provide additional information on where more in-depth resources can be referenced. There will be time for questions and answers after the presentation. If you have a question that's not answered within the presentation, please enter it in the chat feature at any time. This presentation applies to all public schools, education service districts, and public charter schools. During this presentation, we will focus on the four main parts of SSA where it pertains to child nutrition programs. Those are expanded income guidelines when operating provision 2, community eligibility provision incentive, and breakfast after the bell requirements. We will give a brief overview of each section. Before we dive into the specifics of the Student Success Act, we thought we'd highlight the brief history of SSA. The Student Success Act was signed into law in 2019. SSA provides additional state funds to expand participation in the school breakfast and national school lunch programs by making it more financially feasible for sponsors to participate in the Community Eligibility Provision, CEPI, providing expanded income eligibility guidelines up to 300% of the federal poverty level, and serving breakfast after the bell in schools with 70% or greater free and reduced price eligible students. All of these efforts will result in greater access to nutritious meals for Oregon students. As a reminder, requirements within the SSA must be implemented by public schools, education service districts, and public charter schools when applicable. The Oregon Expanded Income Guidelines, commonly referred to as EIG, expands the eligibility threshold up to 300% of the federal poverty level. Prior to EIG, schools and school districts process household applications for free and reduced price meals using the federal income eligibility guidelines, which only qualifies students whose household incomes are up to 185% of the federal poverty level. So EIG expands the threshold to include households between 185% and 300%, ensuring that many more students will be eligible for meals at no charge. You may be wondering, how does this all work? If you think of it in terms of federal reimbursement funds and state reimbursement funds, it's a little easier to take in. It all comes down to determining a student's eligibility and what funds will be used to reimburse your school or school district. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of feedback that I'm difficult to hear. Is that a little bit better? Okay, just let me know if you have any trouble. I'll speak up a little bit more. Sponsors must first process applications using the federal income guidelines to make a determination whether or not a student qualifies for free meals. If they do, no further determination is needed. Sponsors will follow the federal notification process by sending the Notice to Household of Approval of Benefits letter. The federal government funds will reimburse the sponsor at the free rate for all reimbursable meals served to that student. If they do not qualify for free meals, sponsors must then determine if the student qualifies for reduced price meals on the federal chart. If they do, sponsors will follow the federal notification process by sending the notice to households of approval of benefits letter. Reminder, reduced price students receive meals at no charge due to existing state funds. The sponsor will claim the student in the reduced price category. The sponsor will then be reimbursed with federal dollars at the reduced price rate, and then state funds will be used to make up the difference between the reduced price and free rate. So what happens if a student does not qualify on the federal income chart? The student is denied federally, and the Oregon EIG must be used. As mentioned on the previous slide, if the student does not qualify for free or reduced price meals using the federal income guidelines, the sponsor would then move to the Oregon Expanded Income Guidelines. If the student qualifies under EIG, the student will receive their meals at no charge. Federal funds will pay the sponsor at the paid rate, and state funds will be used to make up the difference between the paid rate and the federal free rate. Sponsors would claim the meals as paid in CMP Web and under the Oregon EIG section. As a reminder, sponsors who qualify a student under EIG must give notice of federal denial of free and reduced price meals as required by federal regulation, but must then notify the family that the student is eligible under Oregon EIG. In addition, EIG eligibility does not extend the student for other programs or discounts, such as reduced sports fees, etc. Lastly, if a student's income does not qualify under any of the charts, that student would be denied free or reduced price meals and would be considered a paid student. All public schools, ESDs, and public charter schools that are not operating under a provision must use the Expanded Income Guidelines. Therefore, during the renewal process, you cannot select regular counting and claiming in CMP Web for NSLP and SBP. Oregon EIG must be selected. And as a reminder, if you have questions, please feel free to enter into the chat at any time. When a sponsor elects to operate Provision 2, they are required to serve meals to students at no charge. Provision 2 lasts for 4 years, and the claiming percentages are established in what is known as the base year. In the base year, sponsors collect applications and use direct certification to establish each student's eligibility status. After the base year is complete, sponsors simply count the number of reimbursable meals served to eligible students and submit their claim. The percentages established in the base year are then applied to the claim. Oregon EIG Provision 2 combines the two, the provision and the access to the Oregon EIG qualifying funds. Public schools, ESDs, and public charter schools are eligible to participate in Oregon EIG Provision 2 and must use the Oregon Income Guidelines when establishing a base year. For those sponsors that are already operating under Provision 2 and are not in a base year, ODE CMP will use data from the U.S. Census Bureau American Community Survey to estimate the percentage of school-aged children in the federal paid category that are from households with income above 185%, but not exceeding 300% of the federal poverty guidelines to calculate the EIG census rate. Now let's talk about CEP. CEP is a federal program through which participating schools can provide breakfast lunch to all students at no charge. CEP schools don't collect household income applications, thus reducing their administrative burden. Meals are reimbursed at either the federal free or paid meal rates according to a federal formula. Essentially, the more students who are either directly certified for free meals, example, their household qualifies for SNAP benefits, or categorically eligible for free meals, example, students who qualify as homeless, runaway, migrant, or Head Start, the more meals reimbursed at the higher federal free rate. To be eligible for CEP, each school must be participating in both NSLP and SBP. To qualify for CEP, a district, group of schools, or individual school must have at least 40% or more identified students. As a reminder, an identified student is one who is eligible through direct certification or by way of categorical eligibility. The Community Eligibility Program Incentive, CEPI, is part of the Student Success Act. The CEPI program provides CEP schools with a supplemental state-funded meal reimbursement for each reimbursable meal they serve a student. These state meal reimbursements are in addition to the federal meal reimbursement CEP schools already receive. The CEP Incentive Reimbursement Program is open to all public schools, ESDs, and public charter schools participating in the CEP. Whether your school is already participating in CEP or is joining it for the first time in school year 22-23, your CEP school is eligible for the new CEP Incentive Reimbursement Program. With CEPI, the state will supplement the federal free reimbursement rate up to 90%, and the remaining 10% will be reimbursed at the federal paid rate. The state-funded CEPI will pay the difference between the federal paid category reimbursement rate and the federal free category reimbursement rate. In the chart pictured on this slide, the top bar demonstrates the claiming percentages for a CEP school prior to SSA that qualified with a 40% ISP. The percentage in green represents the free claiming percent after the ISP times the 1.6 multiplier was applied. The percentage in yellow demonstrates the paid rate percentage. As represented in the bottom bar, the same green federal free rate exists, but due to SSA and the CEPI, the blue, which represents state funds, supplement the difference between the federal free claiming rate and the federal paid claiming rate up to 90% free, making it much more financially feasible for sponsors to participate. The Oregon Student Success Act includes a requirement that school districts, public charter schools, and education service districts are required to make breakfast available at no cost to all students at a school site if 70% or more of the students at that school site are eligible for federal free or reduced price meal benefits. The breakfast after the bell, commonly referred to as BAT-B requirement, went into effect July 1st of 2020. However, with the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent declaration of the National Public Health Emergency in March of 2020, implementation was postponed. Full implementation of the BAT-B requirement is required as of July 1st, 2022, so this school year. The requirement applies to schools that meet the following two criteria. 1, the school is either administered by a school district, common, joint, and union school districts, or education school district, or the school is a public charter school. And 70% or more of the students at that school in the second preceding school year were eligible for free or reduced price meals under the U.S. Department of Agriculture's guidelines. The school year 22-23 BAT-B required list evaluated data from school year 18-19 due to the fact that school year 19-20 data was unavailable. As a reminder, students qualifying for meals at no charge under EIG do not impact the data used for evaluating breakfast after the bell requirement. This slide includes links to ODE web pages that provide additional in-depth information on the topic areas that we've discussed in today's webinar. We hope that you find this information helpful. At this time, we'll stop recording this webinar, and we have Bernardo Tuma and Jennifer Parento, Child Nutrition Specialists, standing by to answer any